What surgery was the hardest to recover from?
Oh, it's when you do like the lipo and like ab edge, like the J plasma, because it's like the heat goes in when they.
There is nothing wrong to do with surgery if you don't like something and accept.
Reality television has a peculiar way of freezing people in time. The moment a camera crew follows someone through their most vulnerable moments, their heartbreaks, their cultural clashes, their tears at airport terminals, audiences form a fixed image of who that person is. For the cast of 90 Day Fiancé, that image became something close to permanent in the public consciousness. Viewers fell in love with their quirks, judged their decisions, and sometimes mercilessly mocked their appearances. But life, as it turns out, does not pause for television. The people who once graced TLC's most addictive franchise have continued living, evolving, and in many cases, transforming so dramatically that longtime fans have done a genuine double take, scrolling through their social media feeds. What drives a person to reinvent themselves so completely? For some, it begins with health. For others, it is the sting of public criticism that sparks something fierce and determined inside them. And for others still, it is simply the passage of time working its quiet magic. New relationships, new cities, new careers, new perspectives on who they want to be. Whatever the catalyst, the transformations that have unfolded among the 90 Day Fiancé family are nothing short of extraordinary. Some stars shed significant weight. Others rebuilt their bodies through grueling athletic training. Several underwent cosmetic procedures and spoke openly about their reasons, inviting both admiration and controversy. And a few simply grew into themselves in ways that no camera could have predicted. This is not a story about vanity or superficiality. It is a story about people who refuse to let a television show define them forever. It is about the deeply human desire to change, to improve, to reclaim your own narrative when the world thinks it already knows your story. From a Ukrainian entrepreneur who built a fashion empire to a viral internet sensation who silenced his critics through sheer physical dedication. These are the 90 Day Fiancé stars who are absolutely unrecognizable today, and the journeys that got them there. If there is one name from a 90 Day Fiancé universe that became synonymous with internet virality, it is Big Ed. Edward Allen Brown arrived on screens through his relationship with Rose Vega, a much younger woman from the Philippines, and almost immediately became a cultural phenomenon. His unconventional appearance, his deadpan delivery, and some genuinely cringe-worthy on-screen moments turned him into meme currency practically overnight. For a while, it seemed like Ed's legacy would be permanently tied to jokes and viral screenshots. But something shifted. Behind the memes was a real person absorbing real cruelty. And at some point, Ed decided he had absorbed enough. Living with Klippel-Feil syndrome, a rare skeletal condition that affects the development of the cervical spine and limits neck mobility, Ed had spent much of his life navigating a body that drew unwanted attention. The internet commentary about his appearance cut deeply, by his own admission. In interviews, he described the emotional weight of reading those comments and the toll it took on his self-worth. Rather than retreat, Ed chose to fight back in the most personal way possible, by transforming himself. He committed to a rigorous fitness regimen, completely overhauling his diet and building a consistent exercise routine that he documented publicly on social media. The results became impossible to ignore. Over time, Ed's followers watched him grow noticeably leaner and more muscular, his energy levels visibly higher, his posture and confidence radiating through every post. Workout clips and milestone updates replaced the meme-bait content that had once defined his online presence. What makes Ed's transformation particularly compelling is the emotional transparency that accompanied it. He did not simply post before and after photos and move on. He talked honestly about the difficulties, the days when his condition made movement painful, the psychological hurdles of reshaping a body that had been publicly ridiculed. That willingness to show the full picture, the struggle alongside the progress, resonated with fans who had previously dismissed him. Today, Big Ed stands as one of the more surprising redemption arcs in the franchise's history. Proof that reinvention is available to anyone willing to do the uncomfortable work. When Anfisa Arkhipchenko appeared alongside Jorge Nava, she was cast by many viewers in the role of villain. Her bluntness was sharp, her demands were unapologetic, and her refusal to perform sweetness for the cameras earned her fierce criticism from audiences. She was written off by many as someone who would fade quietly from the public once the cameras stopped rolling. Instead, Anfisa did something nobody expected. She walked into a gym and never really left. Her pivot toward health and fitness was not a casual lifestyle change. It was a complete identity reconstruction. Anfisa threw herself into weightlifting with the same focused intensity she had always possessed, training seriously enough to transition into competitive bodybuilding. The physical transformation was dramatic and undeniable. Her frame, once known primarily for its aesthetic appeal in a conventional sense, became sculpted and powerful in an entirely different way, muscular, defined, and the product of genuine athletic discipline. The competitive results followed the hard work. Anfisa entered bodybuilding competitions and took home victories, most notably a first-place finish in Las Vegas that stood as a clear declaration. This was not a publicity stunt. This was a serious athlete who had built something real. Her social media, filled with training content, nutritional insights, and the kind of inspirational messaging that comes from someone who has genuinely lived the struggle they are describing. Critics questioned her motivations, as critics always do. Some suggested the transformation was calculated for attention, another chapter in a reality TV performer's endless pursuit of relevance. Anfisa addressed these doubts directly and firmly, making clear that her reasons were personal, about growth, discipline, and proving something to herself rather than her audience. Adding further depth to her reinvention, she pursued academic achievement alongside athletic success, completing a business degree from a University of California campus with high honors. The combination of athletic accomplishment and educational achievement painted a picture of someone with considerably more dimension than reality television had ever bothered to show. Paula Mayfield has the distinction of being one of the original 90-Day Fiancé cast members, appearing in the very first season alongside husband Russ Mayfield. She arrived from Colombia with a bold personality and a striking sense of style, and over the years she became one of the franchise's most recognizable faces. But Paula's most remarkable chapter had nothing to do with wedding planning or cultural adjustment. It had everything to do with what she built inside a gym and eventually inside a wrestling ring. Fitness became more than a hobby for Paula. It became a calling. She trained with the dedication of someone building toward a professional goal, developing an athletic physique that was the visible product of years of consistent, demanding work. Personal training became a career path, giving her expertise a practical application while simultaneously building a social media following that now numbers in the millions. Her platforms became spaces where fitness content, motivational messaging, and honest conversation about the discipline required for physical transformation coexisted naturally. Then came wrestling. Paula's entry into professional wrestling competition was perhaps the most unexpected career pivot in the entire 90-Day Fiancé universe. It required not just physical conditioning, but an entirely different skill set: timing, performance, athleticism, and toughness in both body and mind. That she pursued it seriously, competed genuinely, and earned credibility within that world speaks to something fundamental about her character. Paula has always been someone who moves toward challenge rather than away from it. Her style evolved in parallel with her athletic identity. The vibrant, print-heavy wardrobe that reflected her Colombian heritage gave way to something sleeker and more sport-influenced. Crop tops, fitted training wear, the aesthetic of someone whose daily life revolves around physical performance. Far from being a departure from her roots, this evolution felt like an honest expression of who she had become. Someone whose sense of self is rooted in strength, not just appearance. Angela Deem was never someone who shied away from attention. Her explosive personality, her fierce loyalty to family, and her complicated long-distance relationship with Michael Ilisamy kept audiences riveted and occasionally exasperated across multiple seasons. Angela was loud, unfiltered, and entirely herself on camera, qualities that made her polarizing but also deeply memorable. Her physical transformation, when it came, was just as impossible to ignore. Angela's cosmetic journey was extensive and well documented. She underwent breast reduction and augmentation, liposuction, a facelift, and various other procedures, many of which were captured on camera during 90 Day Fiancé. Happily ever after? The decision to allow that level of documentation was deliberate. Angela wanted her audience to understand what she was doing and why. Her reasons were rooted in a desire to feel younger, healthier, and more confident after years of health struggles and public judgment about her appearance. The criticism arrived predictably. Some viewers felt the changes were excessive, that she was succumbing to pressures she had previously seemed immune to. Angela's response was characteristically direct. This was her choice, made for herself, and the opinions of others were simply irrelevant to that decision. There is something genuinely refreshing about that clarity, even for those who disagree with the choices themselves. Post-surgery, Angela embraced a completely different aesthetic. Fitted clothing, platinum blonde hair, and bold makeup replaced her earlier casual presentation. Social media became her stage for showcasing the transformation, and she leaned into it fully, posting confidently, collaborating with beauty brands, and essentially rewriting her public image from the ground up. Whatever one thinks of the choices involved, the confidence with which Angela owns her reinvention is undeniably striking. Yara Zaya came to 90 Day Fiancé from Ukraine, navigating the enormous cultural adjustment of relocating to the United States to marry Jovi Dufresne. Her sharp fashion sense and candid communication style made her an immediate standout, but viewers who wrote her off as simply stylish underestimated what was actually unfolding. Yara was quietly building something. She was open about undergoing cosmetic procedures, specifically work on her nose and lips, and approached the subject with a refreshing matter-of-factness. In her framing, the procedures were personal choices made for her own confidence, not performances of femininity for anyone else's benefit. At the tell-all for her season, she articulated a nuanced position. Self-love is paramount, but modifying features that genuinely affect your confidence is a valid expression of that same self-love. It was a perspective that resonated with many fans and generated substantive conversation about body autonomy.